The reason why I cited Article 2, Section 2 is because the generally accepted principle of international law is that when speaking of treaty, it is a treaty between one state versus another state or a group of states. It is not a treaty between an agency of the state and the United Nations, right? So I look at it as a case of discourtesy, to say the least. If the Commission on Human Rights will independently submit to the Commission, the United Nations Commission on Human Rights, a report saying that the Philippine government is violating the Convention on Human Rights.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. It's really not, um, as you say, discourteous in that sense, but we're just actually doing our mandate as is provided by this international convention. As you said again, it's really an agreement between the state and between states as it is a treaty. That's why we are holding into account the government as a state party with this international convention. And again, NHRI as an institution works specifically for that matter. We do not work as a part of the workings of the government in a sense that we do law enforcement, in a sense that we do provide for basic services that should be and as is rightly given to the state as a state party. That will um, that is obligated to perform the convention, or that is obligated to implement the convention.
Two questions, very, very much related. First, cite me that international convention which says that without prior clearance of the Philippine government, its Commission on Human Rights can independently submit a report to the United Nations of violations by the Philippine government of United Nations uh, Convention on Human Rights. Number two, is Russia, China, Syria, and other, Iraq, other governments that are less democratic signatories to that convention?
Um, Sir, there are currently 8 conventions, international human rights conventions, to which the Philippines is a state party, meaning the Philippine government has actually acceded to the fact that they will perform or implement the obligations stated in these conventions. In this 8, excluding the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is a general accepted principle, international principle, um, all this does not specifically mandate that the Commission to submit independent report. As I said earlier, it is within the mechanisms of these conventions, which create, for example, the Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities created a committee which will monitor implementation by the state parties. The rules provided by this committee requires us as a national human rights institution and also a body under the UN to report, independently report, not just the compliance of all uh, member state parties. So um, we cannot give you the exact provision under this convention which mandates us to submit. It is within the rules, and we could probably provide for the rules for that matter because it's within our office also. We could provide the rules wherein the commission or the NHRI can submit independent reports. Along with that, not only NHRIs but also CSOs even can submit shadow reports. It's called shadow reports. So these are mechanisms within the committee bodies that are not provided for in the convention, but specifically with the committee that are governing this convention.
Please submit to this committee the conventions that you've been talking about. But again, focus on paragraph 7, section 18. The Commission on Human Rights has been obliged, power and function-wise, quote, to quote, monitor the Philippine government's compliance with international treaty obligations on human rights, unquote. It did not say to report to the United Nations its non-compliance. Do you think that you have, as an office of the Philippine government, been committing a ground by which your office could be abolished?
Sir, with all due respect, we would like to maintain that the office really is an independent office with a very specific mandate. Probably hard to understand, but it's really something that we're just doing our mandate as is indicated in this convention. So,
Mandate, excuse me, under the convention.
mandate under the Constitution because it is the main source of our powers and function. Except that in the Constitution, it says that we are to monitor international human rights obligations.
But not to report violations.
We could give you the rules which says, rules provided by this committee monitoring, governing the conventions. We could give you the rules wherein the Philippine or the CHR is given authority to submit its report.
Mr. Chair, may I intervene with
Okay.
your